Hey folks, welcome to another lecture. And in the previous lectures, what we have achieved so far is we are having a fully functional navigation component with config driven UI and a lot of optimization test cases and storybook components. The next thing we are going to target in this particular lecture would be this particular side navigation. So how this works is that if I just refresh the application, so you can see that this navigation bar comes, and this is only coming when the user is logged in. And let's say if we are not logged in, this particular side nav will not be present. So let's perform a sign out, and you can see that the moment we sign out, the side nav is gone, and the moment I sign in, it should be able to render this side nav once we are logged in. So this is exactly what we are going to build, and this would be the case. This would be the part where we will also discuss the famous server actions. So we'll try to create a server action to fetch the side nav data. We'll see in a moment how it is done. So this is our localhost 3000 development application, and I'm again on my master branch. Everything is synced, and I'll come back to my layout.tsx file inside app. Okay. And layout.tsx, this was the place where we have put our navigation bar, and this is exactly would be the place where we are going to put our new component called as side navigation or sidebar. So what we'll do is, first of all, I'll head over to my components and I'll create a folder called as Sidenav, and this Sidenav, inside this I'll create one index.tsx file, and I'll create a new file, the component file called as Sidenav. Okay, sidenav.tsx. Inside Sidenav, we are going to perform RAFCE, and we can get rid of React. We can make this as capital letters, and this is what we have now. This is a server component because we haven't written use client at the top. And first of all, I'll do something like Sidenav here. I'll save this, and this is not export default. This is going to be a named export. I'll come back to my index.tsx file. I'll say export Sidenav. Let me just copy this thing from /Sidenav, and let's save this. And inside layout.tsx, I am going to say something like Sidenav. Okay, I saved it, and you can see that we have imported Sidenav over here. Everything is compiled, and somewhere it might be rendering that part. Let us see, is it rendering? This is Sidenav over here, and you can see that yeah, it is getting overlapped due to the styles. So it is having a PT16. This Sidenav should also have a PT16. So I can give something like class name PT16. Let us save this, and you can see we have a side navigation present over here. Okay, this looks awesome. Okay, now what we have to do is so since we have got our side nav over here, I have to render my two of the boards. Okay, how we are going to see those boards? So if you head over to new terminal, okay, and let me show you the command. So I have a command for studio. Okay, so hit yarn studio, hit enter, and head over to the boards. Over here it will fetch you the list of all the boards that our system has currently. So currently we have two boards. One is sprint board January and sprint board new project. So we have to show these two items over here. So we have to fetch data, we have to get the data in the component, and we have to render it. So how exactly can we do it? this is again really very easy. One way is to use API structure. So what we have done previously, that in the side, if you remember the navigation component, and if you head over to nav, we are fetching this, we are making a fetch call over here. Okay, so these fetch calls, they are visible in the network tabs. That is something we know. Okay, then what is another option? Another option would be to use server actions. Okay, how exactly are we going to use server actions? Okay, so fetch config, we have /API/config. You can see that the config call is clearly visible in the network tabs. Okay, this is one thing. But is there a way where we can avoid making network calls in the client? And is it possible to make network calls? It is not exactly network calls. Or if I explain it better, so is it possible to query the database on the server side? Yeah, it is possible. And how exactly are we going to do it? We are going to use server actions for it. So head over to your application, inside app, create new folder called as actions. Okay, and inside actions we are going to create a file called as board.ts. so all the actions related to boards are going to be present over here. That's one thing. So to use actions, first of all you have to write use server. Okay, because these actions are going to interact with server, so it is important that you add use server over here. One thing. Then and then what I have to do is I'll import these two stuffs over here. I can remove this for now. So we have imported our Prisma, we have imported the board type from Prisma. It has to be import type from Prisma client. This is nothing, just the schema of the board table. If you have completely forgotten what this is, so if you go to Prisma, schema.prisma, so over here you have this board, right? This board model. So this is what we are importing over here. I'll tell you in a moment why exactly are we doing it. Now it is the time for us to create our action. So I'll do something like export async function get all board. I have created my function. This function would return me the boards. Okay, so this would be something like const boards equals to await prisma dot board dot find many. Okay, so fetch await prisma dot boards dot find many. Okay, and we are returning boards. That is it we are doing. Now we'll import this get all board function inside our Sidenav component. Okay, to use it, something like we will do const boards data equals to await async is missing, so we can make server components async like this, await. Then over here I have to do something like get all board and call it over here and save this. Okay, let us see if something is happening. We have to also log this boards data somewhere, so I'll do something console.log boards data. Okay, and yep, something just happened. You can see that this array got printed over here, and we'll still see these two items over here. But so since it's a server component, this server is getting rendered on the server, and that is why we are seeing it like this. I can prove it by doing something like boards data dot map board, and I return a div which says board dot title, and you can see that we are extracting the data from the database. So does it means that we'll see those network calls over here? We haven't called any API. So if I disable everything and refresh, I performed a hard refresh. Apart from config and the session calls, nothing exactly was made. Okay, no network call was made, and this is the true power of server actions. Okay, you can keep whatever transactions between whatever JSON you have, if you want to exchange, you can keep it completely anonymous to the user. And over here, since this is getting rendered on the server, so we are seeing these logs over here and not on the browser. Okay, this is nav data. I think nav data is this one. I think I left a log somewhere missing. Let me quickly get this nav. This is the part. Okay, we can remove this log, and yeah, I was talking about this thing. So see, this is really powerful. Okay, we are able to fetch something from the server directly, and what we did was, firstly we created a server action, Prisma. I can do something like as board array. Okay, this won't make much difference, but ultimately it will help me establish the schema, so that is why I'm writing it. So over here we are returning all the boards, and what are the data we are extracting? We are extracting ID, type, title, description, start date, end date. Do we need all of this data? No, we don't need all of this data. So to fix this, I'll do something like select ID as true, select only ID and title. Okay, that is all we need. Now if we save, refresh, wait for it to compile, now you can see that it is only extracting ID and title. So we saved some bandwidth, we saved some bytes on the network calls, and eventually the API should become also fast. So this way we created server actions, we created a use server, okay, added a use server, we get the Prisma, we import the types, we exported a asynchronous function get all board, which would eventually make a await call with Prisma, and it will give us the data inside a variable, and we are returning that variable. We could have directly return this awaited call, something like return, and we can get rid of this as well. The variable was just added for your convenience. And coming back to Sidenav, so first of all what we did was we added this component. So this layout is going to be server component. This inside the server component we added another server component, Sidenav. This Sidenav was a asynchronous function, asynchronous component, where we performed await. So this component got rendered on the server, so we saved the network call. Now this Sidenav is a component. Okay, this Sidenav is a component, and we have to add some styles and other stuffs, and we have to also fix the layout, because navigation bar, Sidenav and children, these guys are now stacked, but this is not what we want. I want navigation bar, Sidenav and all of the content at the right. So how exactly can we do it? We have to first fix some styles over here, so that navigation bar and Sidenav, these two guys look like kind of a fixed structure, and the other items, they start moving. Okay, so how exactly can we do this? Okay, so this is a Sidenav, so maybe the Sidenav should be a fixed component. So let me add fixed, let us see, and this got overlapped. Okay, it would eventually take some space, so I would say something like, how much space is this taking? This is taking width full. Okay, this is, it would take full width on small devices and 250 pixels on our desktops. So it would be w full, and on desktop devices, so it will be smw 250px. So this again, nothing would change over here, and I have to first align my main content. That should not overlap. So the main content is in the children, and this particular children is our page. Okay, this is pt6 and sml 250 pixels. Making much sense. These are over here, and what else we have to do? We have to add some styles, and we have to highlight the board which is being currently viewed. What I mean by that is, so if you click on this particular board, okay, what will happen is it will fetch the board, and it will redirect you to a particular UI. Okay, so over here, if you notice, the URL is something like /board / some ID, and the moment it is done, this particular thing got highlighted, and we got all our boards. Okay, so we have to highlight it based on the user's URL. So we'll also see in a moment how this component is going to do all the highlight and other stuffs. And since we are dealing with this URL and other stuff, so this is not present on the server side. Okay, routing, these things are not present on the server side. It is client specific. So if the moment we come on to this highlight part, it becomes a client component. But the moment it becomes a client component, then all of the hard work which we did to create server actions and keep things anonymous would go in vain. This is not what we want. So how exactly can we do this? How exactly can we prevent ourselves with this thing? Okay, so this is a question I think for the later parts of the lectures. Okay, so in this lecture, I just focused on creating server actions, adding a side menu, and just rendering the data. In the next parts, we'll start building this particular components. Okay, we'll inject some client code, and we'll add the functionality to get the ID from the route and highlight a particular nav bar. So I'll see you guys in the next lecture.